morning. Welcome in the name of the Instituto de la Paz y los Conflictos and the University of Granada to this International Uyghur Studies Conference 2024, Thinking Gender and Queer Theory into Our Approaches of Colonialism Across East Turkestani Contexts. We are delighted to have you here at our institution in Granada. I hope you enjoy your time here and that this conference be very fruitful and enriching for you. We are going to start. First, Dilnur Reyhan is going to speak to you. Thank you very much.
I will speak in Uyghur because this is a special topic, so we preferred to do it in Uyghur and English. Bugünkü kiriş sözümüzde üç muhim noktani aytib ötemiz. Men Uyg'urcha, Leo İngilizce. Birinci muhim nokta bu qitimqi ilmiy yig'inlarimizningki asosiy temasi to'g'risida. Bu növbetlik xalqaralıq Uyg'urshunoslik yig'inlarimiz uchun yig'inga ishtirok qilgan leksiyachilarimizni Sharqiy Turkistonning o'xshamagan orqa ko'rinishidan chiqib turib, mustamlikalik nuqtasi bo'yicha ijtimoiy jinslar va queer yaqinlashishi bilan tafakkur qilishga taklif qilamiz. Bizning o'ylaganimiz har soatdagi xizmatdoshlarga bu nazariyalarni, ya'ni queer va ijtimoiy jinslar nazariyasini faqat ijtimoiy jinsiyatga munosabatli masalalarni tadqiq qilish emas, balki har qanday temalar uchun tadbiqlashni tavsiya qilishdir. Biz uchun aytganda ijtimoiy jinsiyat va queer tadqiqoti nazariyalari Uyg'urshunoslikqa mayli nazariya bo'lsin yoki amaliyotdan bo'lsin ko'p ijobiy narsalarni olib keladi. Bir qancha avlod akademiklar ko'rsatgandek, barliq ijtimoiy va insoniy masalalar irq, sinf va jinsni asos qilgan giralashma kuchning ta'siriga uchraydi. Bu masalalarning hech biri bu üç xil omilning yakka holidan paydo bo'lmaydi. Biz oldingi ikki navbatlik xalqarалық Uyg'urshunoslik yig'inlari orqali mustamlikaning Uyg'ur hozirgi zamon va bugungi tarixini o'rganishda qanchalik markaziy masala ekanligini ko'rsatdik. Endi bu yil bo'lsa biz ijtimoiy jinsiyat va queer nazariyasining Uyg'urlarning o'tmishi va hoziri to'g'risidagi barliq temalarni tadqiq qilishda naqadar ahamiyatli ekanligini ko'rsatib berishni umid qilamiz. Mustamlikachilik bo'lsa bir girallashma nuqtai nazar bo'yicha tadqiq qilingan alohida muhim masala. Chunki u oldi bilan bu o'xshamagan omillarning ta'sir kuchini ishlab chiqaradi va davomlashtiradi. Undan boshqa mustamlikaviy hukmronlik mushulardan o'zi qoladi. Bo'libmi mutlaq ko'pchiligimiz bu yerdagi g'arbning ilmiy organlarida ishlayotganligimiz uchun bu aslida muhim. Chunki g'arb dunyosida mustamlikachilik va jinslashgan hukmronlikning ishlab chiqarilishi va davomlashishi cho'nqur. Xitoy ma'rifidan kelgan Uyg'ur tadqiqotchilari bo'lsa, Xitoyning mustamlikachilik va jinslashgan hukmronligidan qutulgan bo'lsa-mu, ammo uning ta'siriga cho'nqur uchragan va undan keyin g'arbning texnik davomlashayotgan mustamlikaviy va jinsvoz ong dunyosida ishlab, bu xil ongning ta'siriga qo'shilib uchrayotganligi texmi muhim. Uchrayotganlik uchun mayli Uyg'ur bo'layli yoki bo'lmayli, hamma tadqiqotchilar yanada ingimizga o'rnab ketgan va o'zimizni sezmagan holda har xil tusdagi mustamlikaviy zo'ravonliklarni ma'lum turda davomlashtiryapmiz. Buning misoli masalanga davomliq Uyg'ur millatini, Uyg'ur xalqini masalanga osonlik millat deb qolgancha tunishtirish yoki bo'lmasa mustamlika nomi bo'lgan Xinjiangni rahat shaklda her qanday tusda ishlatish. Shuning o'zi ingimizga naqadar mustamlikaviy ongning singib ketganligini ko'rsatadi. Uyg'ur bo'lsaqmi, masalan. Va buni faqat nazariya jihatdan emas, balki amaliyotimizni ifoda qilishga hammamizning ehtiyoji bor.
Hi everyone, I am Leo Maillet. I'm a PhD student at the University of Geneva and also a member of the Uyghur European Institute. Thank you very much to our colleagues from the University of Granada and from the Instituto de la Paz y los Conflictos A special thanks to Chiara Olivieri, who invited us to organize this year's International Uyghur Studies Conference in Granada. We're very delighted to be here. And so we're gonna first introduce the topic of the conference. This is what my colleague Dilnur Hayhan just did in Uyghur. And for this year's International Uyghur Studies Conference, we invited participants to engage in gender and queer approaches of colonialism across various East Turkestani contexts. Our idea was to suggest colleagues from all disciplines to bring these theories not only in the study of gender-related issues, but of any kind of topic. We indeed think that the growing body of literature in gender and queer studies has a lot to offer to the way we conduct research in Uyghur studies, both in theory and practice. As several generations of scholars have shown, all social and human issues are impacted by intersectional power dynamics based on race, class, and gender. During the last two editions of the International Uyghur Studies Conference, we showed how colonialism was central to the study of Uyghur modern and contemporary history. This year, we hope to show how queer and gender theory can deepen our approaches of all kinds of issues related to Uyghurs' past and present. Colonialism is a particularly important issue to address through an intersectional perspective. First of all, because it produces and perpetuates all of these power dynamics, but also because colonial domination feeds on them. This is especially important since most of us are working in Western academic institutions that are deeply grounded in the production and perpetuation of both colonial and gendered domination. All of us, non-Uyghur and Uyghur researchers, perpetuate through our work various forms of colonial violence, and we need to collectively reflect on this issue. We need to do so both in theoretical and a practical way.
İkinci noktamız bolsa akademiya sahasida MeToo hareketining ta'siri va jinsiy parakandachchilik masalasi. Hozirgi konkret kontekstda sababli bu xil tanqidiy yiqilish usulini faqat nazariyada emas, amaliyotga tatbiqlashimiz nihoyat zarur. O'tgan 10 yildan beri MeToo hareketi jinsiy zo'ravonlikning jamiyatning har qaysi sohalarida naqadar yomroqlik ekanligini ko'rsatib berdi. Gerçi bu hareket G'arb dünyasının hamma bulunlargacha yetken bolsa-mu, amma Uyghur diaspora cemiyetinde bu hareketning portlashini ko'rmadik. Chunki Uyghur ayollarning ochiq oshkora so'z elishi boshqa jamiyat ayollari bo'lib, G'arb ayollariga qaraganda minglab qiyin. So'z elishga jur'at qilsa, tez sur'at to'liq tashkillangan erlar qo'shuni va ularning yondoshlari tarafidan bir bo'lsa Saranga, bir bo'lsa Xitoy xoiniga, texmi umumiy holda bo'lsa, shu ishlarni o'zlari qutratquvchilarga chiqarilib, texmi zo'r jinsiy zo'ravonlik uchraydi. MeToo hareketi akademiya sohasida so'z va yoki jinsiy zo'ravonliklar orqali universitetlarningki naqadar yot jinslik ota hukmdorlik ta'siri, ya'ni yot jinslik ota hukmdorlik ta'siri ostida ekanligini yo'ritib berdi. Shu sababdan Uyg'urshunoslik sohasida bexatar bir o'rin yaratishimiz uchun qo'limizdan kelishicha bu masalalarni hal qilishimiz intayin zarur. Bu maqsadga yetish uchun oldi bilan Uyg'urshunoslik sohasining xuddi boshqa akademiya sohalariga o'xshashla bir bexatar o'rin emasligini bilishimiz, e'tirof qilishga ehtiyojimiz bor.
It is even more pressing that we engage with such critical approaches, both in theory and practice, because of a specific context. Over the past decade, the hashtag #MeToo movement has shown how widespread sexual violence was in our societies. In academia, this movement has highlighted the fact that universities are deeply affected by heteropatriarchal violence, be it through verbal or physical aggressions. It is thus very important that we do everything we can to tackle these issues in our field in order to make it the safe space that it should be. And in order to do so, we need to acknowledge that it is, just like most of other research fields, not a safe space at all.
üçüncü demoqchi bo'lgan uchinchi muhim nuqtamiz bu navbatlik yig'indan bir leksiyachini vaqtliq chiqarib etganligimiz to'g'risida. Bu yig'indan bir hafta 10 kun burun leksiyasi qabul qilingan bir tadqiqotchining burunqi xizmat o'rnida bir qancha ayol tarafidan jinsiy parakandachilik bilan shikoyat qilinganligi to'g'riliq uchur oldik. Yevropa Uyg'ur institutining turg'izgan jinsiy zo'ravonlikqa qarshi siyosatiga binoan bu masala haqida maxsus tekshirish boshladik. Bu leksiyachi bo'lsa mazkur ilmiy yig'inlardan shundaqla toki tekshirish natijasi aniq bo'lganga qadar institutimizning barliq faoliyatlaridan vaqtliq to'xtab turildi va qatnashishi vaqtliq cheklandi. Yevropa Uyg'ur instituti jinsiy zo'ravonlik qilmishlariga qarshi qat'iy keng qo'saqlik ko'rsatmaslik siyosatini bu xil qilmishni sodir qilguvchi har qanday shaxsga qarata davomli qo'llandi. Shundaqla Uyg'urshunoslik sohasining bexatar bir o'rin bo'lishi uchun tirishdi. Bu maqsadga yetilishimiz uchun har qaysinglardan bir-biringlarga hurmat ko'rsatishinglarni, boshqalarning erkin xohishiga qarshi keladigan har qanday so'z yoki harakatdan o'zinglarni saqlashinglarni so'raymiz. Bu faqat ilmiy suhbatlar davomida emas, bu ilmiy yig'inlar va uning atrofidagi barliq faoliyatlar davomida shundaq. Oxirida
Very recently, we have been informed that one of the colleagues participating in this conference has been accused of sexual harassment by several women he was working with. In accordance with the European Uyghur Institute's policy on sexual harassment, we have launched an investigation on this matter, and that person has been temporarily excluded from all our activities and forbidden to attend this conference. We will keep on maintaining this zero tolerance policy towards sexual violence and will do our best to keep this space as safe and open as we can. In order to do so, we kindly ask you to be respectful to each other and refrain from any kind of verbal or physical misbehavior. This applies not only in our discussions, but also in all the interactions that happen during and after this academic conference.
Voilà. Ahırda bizningki bu yıllık program, bu yıllık Uyg'urshunoslik yig'inlarimizni qo'llagan organlarga, ya'ni Inalko Sharq va O'rta dengiz tadqiqot markazi bo'lgan Sərmum, Fransiya davlatlik sharq tillari va madaniyatlar instituti bo'lgan Inalko, Turkiya Osmonli Balqon va O'rta Osiyo tadqiqot markazi bo'lgan Setobak, Yevropa Uyg'ur instituti, Jeneva universiteti Sharq Osiyo tadqiqotlar fakulteti bo'lgan Estas, İspaniyaning Granada universiteti va Granada universitetidagi Teshlik va to'qinishlar instituti IPAZga rahmatimizni bildiramiz va hammamizga bir o'ngishliq ilmiy yig'inlarni umid qilamiz. Rahmat hammalarga.
And finally, we would like to thank all of the institutions which have allowed us to organize this year's International Uyghur Studies Conference. First of all, the Center for Research on Middle East and the Mediterranean of the Institute of Oriental Languages and Culture of Paris. The Center for Turkic, Ottoman, Balkanic and Central Asian Studies of the School for Advanced Studies in the Social Sciences of Paris, the European Uyghur Institute, the Department of East Asian Studies of the University of Geneva, and the Instituto de la Paz y los Conflictos y la Universidad de Granada. Muchas gracias. Now we're going to start with the first panel of our conference. And so the panel is entitled, it is dedicated to women in East Turkestan's 20th century anti-colonial struggles. And I now invite my colleague Eleanor Hart, coordinator at the European Uyghur Institute and co-organizer of this event, to come to the stage in order to chair this panel. Thank you very much for your attention and have a nice conference.
Hi. As we have people following online and the panel officially starts at 9:30, we're going to wait for a little bit so that we make sure we don't lose anybody on the way. Okay, so we're going to start now with panel 1, so the first panel of this conference, which is Women in East Turkestan's 20th Century Anti-Colonial Struggles. So our first presentation is going to be by Dilnur Reyhan, who is a sociologist based in Paris, president of the European Uyghur Institute, and who also teaches at INALCO, the the Oriental School of anyway, something. Oriental Studies School, Paris, you got it. Languages and Cultures, and then Sciences Po. And she is going to be talking to us about an anti-colonial heroine in Uyghur culture.
Ouh là là. Ouais, merci. Désolée. presentation, I will present Rizwangul, well-known Uyghur heroine in the Uyghur East Turkestani national struggle, anti-colonial struggle. So as one of the subjects of nationalist discourse, in most accounts, women are often used and portrayed only as the biological reproducers of people and as a symbolic reproducers of the boundaries of these groups. Despite their presence as direct combatants, intelligence agents, regard workers or pacifist activists, their participation in liberation wars is not always officially recognized and is very little documented. Moreover, not all those who took up arms for the nation were later treated as heroines, as is the case for most of their gender minoritized peers through history. These women are forgotten. Only a select few are carefully chosen to become national heroines. These women all fit the demands and the needs of the collective national project, which has been central since the start of the era of the nation state. The stories of several young women are particularly prominent in the Uyghur nationalist narrative. They mostly reflect recent Uyghur history marked by the nationalist struggle against Chinese colonialism, which began in the 19th century. These young female fighters who died at the hands of the enemy during the struggle have become anti-colonial feminist figures of modern Uyghur nationalism, although they remain understudied in Uyghur and the research on them published in other languages is almost non-existent. An exception to this trend is Rizwangul Hashim, a 19-year-old nurse in the East Turkestan National Army who died at the front in 1945. She became, alongside the figure of Nuzgum, the heroine and the symbol of Uyghur women's bravery for the liberation of the nation. In this article, in this paper devoted to the national heroine Rizwangul Hashim, I set out to explain the role of feminist nationalism in the East Turkestani anti-colonial war of liberation and in the development of the Uyghur nationalist consciousness over generations, nourished by stories of the bravery of this compassionate nurse, as she is known in all accounts. Feminist nationalism combines struggles for women's rights with the right to national self-determination. It should not be confused with femo-nationalism. Femo-nationalism, a concept developed by Sarah Ferris, which involves defending a national identity by mobilizing feminist cause in the service of a dominant majority group. The former often takes place in colonial situations where women join anti-colonial nationalist struggles to defend both the nation but also their rights as a minoritized group within their society by the men of their nation. The second, femo-nationalism, is organized by women from the dominant group in an independent nation state fighting for women's rights while at the same time crushing women from minority groups in the country, imposing on them a universalist and a statist vision of feminism. The struggles of Uyghur women who fought alongside men against Chinese colonialism are part of the history of feminist nationalist struggles that we see through the global South. To give a brief historical context of Rizwangul Hashim's time, after the takeover of East Turkestan, Xinjiang by Zhozongtang at the end of 19th century, a series of Chinese warlords ruled by the country. Yang Zhengxin between 1911 and 1928, and his successors Jin Shuren between 28 to 33, and Sheng Shicai from 33 to 44. Jadidism, the movement of Jadidism faced not only repression from the colonial authorities, who were worried about a nationalist awakening, but also from the traditionalist religious elites. The latter, discredited by their corruption and subservience to the colonial regime, hated the reformists, and even issued fatwas against modern schools associating themselves with the colonial governor. Crushed by the Soviet army and the forces of Sheng Shicai, then the region's new governor, the First Republic was unable to hold on to power. The second generation of Jadidists, who was pro-Soviet and was deeply nationalist, they founded the Second East Turkestan Republic on November 12, 1944. It received both logistical and intellectual support from the Soviet Union, which until then had supported the Chinese governor of the Uyghur region, Sheng Shicai. The Second Republic was secular, with Gulja as its capital. Ali Khan Töre, a Soviet Uzbek clerk, became president of the republic, but the real power remained in the hands of Ahmadjan Qasimi, an Uyghur intellectual from Gulja, who trained in the USSR and replaced Töre shortly afterwards. The Second Republic lasted for 5 years until the proclamation of the People's Republic of China. Shortly after the creation of the Chinese Communist State, the People's Liberation Army invaded East Turkestan with the military and the logistical help of Stalin, who betrayed the Uyghurs. Many young people from north of the region, not only Turkic people like Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Tatars, but also non-Turkic Russians, Mongols, Tungans, joined the guerrilla war, which began in Nilka Mountains in August 44. In Gulja, then the regional capital of Ili, the young men and women waited impatiently for the guerrilla to arrive. On November 7, 1944, the Nilka fighters attacked Gulja. The battle lasted until November 11, when almost the entire town of Gulja fell into the hands of the fighters. Only the district of Arembar and the Gulja airport district, where the Chinese army and their reinforcements had arrived on the first day of the battle, resisted the liberation fighters. The Battle of Arembar, which was one of the most atrocious and harshest of the East Turkestani Liberation War, lasted 84 days. Razvangul joined the fighters in the Battle of Arembar on November 9, 1944, 3 days before the declaration of the independence of the East Turkestan Republic. In October 1925, Razvangul was born in a middle-class family in Chilek, in Almaty Oblast of Kazakhstan. According to the intellectual and educator Salima Kamal, her father Hashim was a leather merchant. The family moved to Gulja in East Turkestan when she was 7. The move coincided with the flight of large numbers of people from the USSR in the 30s to escape from the Stalinist terror and famine. Razvangul received her primary education at Sharq Mekteb and her secondary education at Ümit Mekteb. She was very keen to learn. Her family arrived in Gulja in the middle of the school year, and she had to wait until the start of the new year to enroll in primary school. According to the somewhat romanticized biography written by Tursun Ershidin, her parents were also impatient for the start of the new school year to be able to enroll their daughter, who kept asking them to take her to school. She was a bright and energetic pupil, getting full marks in every subject. When she returned home after school, she would gather the neighborhood children together, and instead of playing outside, she would pass on to them everything she had learned at school during the day. At secondary school, she was elected head of the student club, which brought together the best students. On certain evenings, she organized the members of her club into several groups to keep order in the cinema square in Gulja, where every night street vendors selling counterfeit cinema tickets could cause fights. She threatened to bring the police in if the troublemakers did not stop. According to Tursun Ershidin, the children nicknamed Rizwangul Captain Rizwan for her ability to lead the group to victory in games. The local boys often played battle games and did not accept girls into their ranks. One day, when the boys split into two groups to play war, one of the groups was missing a boy. None of the boys in the other group wanted to withdraw. The two groups were unable to reach an agreement, and the game was slow to start. At the point, Rizwangul arrived on the pitch and asked them to accept her. The boys asked her if she could run, to which she answered with another question, that of if any of them could catch her. The boys asked her if she was afraid of the cemetery because the war was going to take place around it. Rizwangul replied that she has already crossed the cemetery by herself several times at night. The boys agreed to let Rizwangul join the game, and her group wins. Sporting and strategic, each time she led the group she was in, they would win. Finally, the boys appointed her captain of two groups. At the time, school lasted 10 years, with 4 years for primary school, 3 years for lower secondary school, and a further 3 years to upper secondary school. Tursun Ershidin recounts that the political changes in education had already hit hard secondary school pupils and teachers. This corresponds to the white terror of the colonial governor Sheng Shirtsai at the end of the 1930s and the beginning of the 40s, which particularly targeted the Jadidistas, who were hunted down, imprisoned, and massacred on a massive scale. Leading intellectual figures such as Lutfullah Mutallib, Abdul Khaliq Uyghur, Anwar Nasri, and Mamtili Tawfiq were burnt alive. School textbooks were reviewed, and the content of these textbooks in Uyghur schools were deemed criminal. One day, Rizwangul and his friends witnessed an astonishing scene when their school books were confiscated. The next day, when they were returned to them, they discovered that some pages of their textbooks had been completely torn out, while textbooks on literature and history had been reduced to almost nothing. The children understand that the content of their history and literature books was being criticized for being too nationalistic. Tursun Ershidin recounts Rizwangul's anger. She reportedly told her classmates that if the government were one of our people, their books would not have been attacked. As in other colonial situations, the school, along the family, was a key area for developing anti-colonial awareness. At secondary school, Rizwangul formed a girls' volleyball team and organized matches against the boys' team. A keen sportswoman, she often won running and skating competitions too. She was not only a sports leader, but also a trendsetter for the young women around her. In a society that adulates long hair for women, Rizwangul had short hair. In summer, she liked to wear short sleeves skirts with short skirts. After her secondary education, Rizwangul studied accountancy between 1942 and 1943 at the girls' school in the regional metropole of Urumqi, where the center of Chinese colonial power was located. After graduating, she returned to Gulja and began working for the Gulja Post and Telegraph Company. This coincided with the start of revolts against colonial rule in the various small towns of the Ili Valley. Like all young people, she heard about these fighters approaching Ulja and was eager to join them. At the beginning of November 44, when the fighters arrived in Ulja and took the town, she finally had the chance to meet them. On the eve of the declaration of independence of the East Turkestan Republic, Rizvangul resigned from her job as an accountant and officially joined the East Turkestan national troops that were beginning to take place. There are very few documents concerning the situation of women, specifically during the short existence of Second East Turkestan Republic. Although there were many publications on this state and memories of former generals who were able to flee to the USSR after the Chinese invasion at the end of 1949. The history of women combatants is poorly written and under-documented. The historical space is entirely occupied by men. Official versions of the history have largely ignored women or have only presented a few well-chosen nationalists to the public. Nabijan Tursun here is probably one of the only authors to have written on the subject. Nabijan Tursun explains in his article dedicated to the roles and the place of women in the National Army of East Turkestan, the French translation of which was published in the bilingual journal of Regard sur les Uyghurs that we edit since 10 years in French and Uyghur. We translated the article of Nabijan Tursun into French last year, that from the beginning of the 20th century, educated women fleeing Tsarist Russia and then the USSR settled in East Turkestan, profoundly influencing the local people. Under the Soviet regime, women received significant recognition, their role in the war being highlighted by propaganda. Whereas under the Chinese Kuomintang army, women and particularly non-Chinese women were relegated to the margins of the society. Women's emancipation, both socially and politically, became a major focus of the East Turkestan Republic. According to Nabijan Tursun, the East Turkestan Republic was committed to gender equality and women's rights, implementing policies aimed at increasing women's participation in public and professional sphere, as demonstrated by the creation of the East Turkestan Ladies Association in 46. The state was committed to gender equality and women's rights, putting in place policies aimed at broadening their participation in the public and the professional sphere, as demonstrated by the creation in 46 of the East Turkestan Ladies Association. These efforts were accompanied by legislative reforms such as adoption of a civil code for East Turkestan in 45, guaranteeing women equal rights with men and protecting them against gender-based discrimination and violence. Alongside these advances, Tursun also highlights the unprecedented integration of women into the East Turkestan armed forces, mainly in the medical corps, but also within battalions, where men and women wore the same uniform regardless of their religion or ethnicity, as well as in the auxiliary military service and in the fields of culture and education. It should be pointed out, however, as mentioned in the note by the editors of the journal Regard sur les Uyghurs, that the creation of the East Turkestan Ladies Association was an initiative of the head of the state, and all the leaders of these association were the wives of the state's senior politicians and were placed under the supervision of the Minister of Religion Affairs and Education. The East Turkestan national troops, which Rizvangul joined as soon as they captured Ulja, liberated the entire Ili Valley by January 45, except for the town of Bertala and 2 or 3 small towns. Although these troops were made up of volunteer farmers and small Uyghur traders and Kazakh and Mongol herders, they were united by a desire to liberate their country against the violent repression of colonial power. initially equipped only with shotguns at best, if not with sticks. As their success against the colonial army grew, they recovered the enemy's weapon and the ammunition, and even succeeded in driving out the powerful army, heavily equipped with the latest weapons available to the Chinese power. Although Ili had been liberated, they still had to go to as far as Urumqi, the regional capital where the Chinese government was based. In January 45, the East Turkestan government decided to officially form the national army. Officer ranks and uniforms were based on the Soviet model, as were many military vocabularies and social and cultural codes already in use in East Turkestani society. On 8 April 45, the East Turkestan Republic officially founded its army with 15,000 men, according to Saudanov, in addition to around 2,000 women of various origins, Uyghur, Tatar, Kazakh, Russian, Mongolian, and others, who joined the ranks of the army, according to Nabijan Tursun. Among the thousands of women fighters, only one woman's name is remembered, that of Rizvangul. The rest of the female soldiers and officers are completely forgotten. There is no trace of them. It's generally the male leaders and the male-dominated nationalist parties that monopolize the attention. In a very short space of time, thanks to the training provided by the USSR, the East Turkestan National Army established itself as the first modern army of Central Asia. Rizwan, as a nurse fighter, after joining the National Army Medical Corps, Rizvangul received a few days intensive training in nursing before starting work at the Olja Military Hospital, where she stayed until the end of the year. The Battle of Arambagh was cruel and extremely difficult, with the Chinese army far superior in terms of ammunition and experience. The hospital filled up with wounded soldiers, and the nurses and the doctors spent all their time there, sleeping in the hospital's annexes. Rizvangul quickly became head of her department thanks to her speed and efficiency, and was much appreciated by her colleagues and the wounded soldiers. At the beginning of January, through her insistence to the hospital authorities and at the request of the wounded officers, she obtained the permission to lead a group of volunteer nurses to the front to treat the wounded soldiers on site. On 13th January 45, still on the Arambagh battlefield, while one of the East Turkestani soldiers was busy firing the automatic rifle, the others advanced to reach one of the enemy forts from where the bullets were raining down. Then the soldier with the automatic rifle took a bullet to the head. The sudden silence of his rifle stopped the rest of the team moving forward for a moment. Seeing this situation unfold, Rizvangul ran and threw herself on the top of the dead soldier, picked up the automatic rifle, and opened fire on the Chinese soldiers. Rizvangul's bravery gave courage to the East Turkestani soldiers, who advanced even faster. Rizvangul was soon replaced by another soldier holding the automatic rifle, and she returned to rescue wounded soldiers. Despite a hail of fire, she managed to bring 3 wounded soldiers more back to the base. She was shot in the head while rescuing a 4th soldier. Rizvangul did not die immediately. She was taken to a hospital where, before closing her eyes for good, she managed to say the phrase, "I'm a fighter, I'm a soldier," according to Tursun Arshidin. At the end of January, once Arambagh had been completely liberated, the Central Command of the East Turkestan National Army organized a special ceremony to honor the soldiers who had died during the war. The contributions and the bravery of the martyr Rizvangul were hailed, and she was awarded a Medal of Bravery. Her father Hashim took to the stage to receive the medal on behalf of his daughter. According to the memories of General Zahir Savdanov, one of the few leaders of the National Army spared from Chinese repression and terror after the invasion of the country by the People's Republic of China. The East Turkestan Republic medals were made of gold for the first-class medals and silver for the second-class medals. The People's Hero, Liberation First, and Struggle for Independence First medals were made of gold, while the Liberation Second, Struggle for Independence Second, Bravery, Volunteer, and Fidelity medals were made of silver. If a heroine of such bravery, who saved the lives of hundreds of soldiers, who opened the way for the national troops to advance under the rain of enemy bullets, and who sacrificed her young life on the battlefield, is not considered as a people's heroine, and it's rewarded only with a silver medal, and then the one wonders what kind of soldier had to do to deserve a first-degree medal. Even when women's contributions and the sacrifices for the nation are recognized, the recognition often pales in comparison to that of their male peers. As I pointed out at the start of this paper, Zvangul Hashem is the only female figure from the anti-colonial liberation war who has been documented, honored, commemorated. Until the 2000, students were still able to study her in literature classes at Uyghur schools. Indeed, in the absence of authorization of teaching several subjects in the history curriculum, many stories from Uyghur history were inserted into literature textbooks. Since 2016, all Uyghur literature textbooks have been removed from schools, and all those involved in the publication have been arrested. However, right up to Generation Y, every young person with a Uyghur school education knows the figure of Razvangul by her nickname given after her death, the Nurse of Compassion, Shafqat Hamshirsi. Uyghur Australian intellectual Salima Kamal and the Turkic literature professor Maghfrat Kamal in Turkey have compiled 3 biographies dedicated to the heroine, 16 poems and epics, a novel, and experts on Razvangul's bravery in 2 autobiographical accounts of the National Liberation War. Many of these poems have become popular songs. In the first month after her death, renowned intellectuals of the time such as Qasimjan Kambri, Zunun Qadri, and the great Uzbek poet Talat Nasri published poems and essays praising this young heroine. In 1948, Zunun Qadri's essay was included in school textbooks. The Razvangul Symphony, composed by the prominent Uyghur musician from Kazakhstan, Quddus Ghojamyarov, won the Stalin Prize in 1951 at Moscow Bolshoi Theater. All this literature and artistic accolades illustrate the story of real independence, even if it only lasted 5 short years. The will for independence and the freedom of the peoples of East Turkestan has never ceased, and the victory achieved under extremely unfavorable conditions, almost a David versus Goliath story, gives hope to present and the future generations. The image and story of Razvangul as symbol of the bravery of the Uyghur woman and as a role model for all young women also lives on. Indeed, even today in the diaspora, whenever a woman is praised for her contributions to the struggle or for her success in her work, she is immediately referred as a contemporary Razvangul. Her name has become a medal, a title that Uyghurs bestow on deserving women. My conclusion: in many countries, notably in France, official armies refused for a long time to accept the presence of women in their ranks, and when women made their presence felt, they were at first limited to the care or administrative sectors. French women soldiers in the Resistance, the fighters who resisted the Nazis and the French collaboration regime in Vichy, had no right, the woman had no right to official recognition or rank. Only in the 1970s were some of them honored posthumously. In the Uyghur case, during the War of Liberation against Chinese colonial rule, most female soldiers were also attached to the army's medical and administrative corps. They, however, also took part in the war at the decision of and following the will of the state. Although the names of very few women and only one heroine are remembered, official recognition for the contribution of women soldiers was immediate, unlikely the French case. Women were trained to handle weapons even if the majority were not on the front line, and some women, including Razvangul, even used weapons at the front. Razvangul is the only figure to become a national heroine among the thousands of women who fought alongside the men. Today's Uyghur nationalist movement is still trying to keep Razvangul's image alive as a symbol of Uyghur feminist nationalism. Thank you very much. And this is the regard sur les Uyghurs that both of articles in French and Uyghur, Nabijan Tursun's articles on East Turkestani women soldiers, and also the French historian's article on the French women soldiers' situation in the resistance. Yeah, you can contact us to get this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dilnur. That was impeccable timekeeping as well. So now we're going to invite Nabijan Tursun to come to stage and to present his paper, The 20th Century Uyghur Women's Revolution. And he has a PowerPoint as well. So Nabijan Tursun is a historian and independent scholar based in Washington, D.C., who is recently undertaking the work of writing, publishing, and then having translated into English his 13-volume history of the Uyghurs. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes. First of all, just 1 month ago, I published my new book. This book, one part of 13 volumes Uyghur history. This dedicated to East Turkestan Islamic Republic in 1933-34. The special about Islamic Republic 1933-34, not Republic 1944-49. That book's already published 2 years ago. This book I want to give as gift to Uyghur Institute in Europe.
Thank you very much.
working here and the other one is working there, but that doesn't go full
Like a
screen.
menu.
No, no, no, no. No, no, es doble pantalla. Me ha hecho el técnico el apaño guapísimo, pero ahora no sé. I'm so sorry. Miguel. Thank you. Hola. Aquí no va a pantalla completa y aquí no se mueve nada. Sorry.
No veo el ratón.
Claro. Ah, ya, ahí estaba.
Estaba en el otro lado.
Ah, vale.
¿Qué apaga, vale?
Sí. No sé por qué me ha abierto dos y uno no va a pantalla completa. Ya. Eso es lo que hace.
Eso es lo que estaba pasando.
Claro.
Vale. Pidiendo en la otra pantalla nos está pidiendo si queremos guardarlo.
No, no tenemos internet.
Por eso nos deja hacerlo.
Vale.
¿Dónde está el otro?
En la... aquí. ¿Ahora va? Es que estamos en...
Hace esto todo el rato, ¿no?
Sí.
¿Vale?
Entonces yo ahora muevo y va. Ah.
Usa los micros muy cerquita, ¿vale? Para que se oigan bien.
Yeah, try to use the micro very close
Okay.
so everybody can... Gracias, Miguel. Muchísimas
Hasta ahora.
gracias. No, it's full screen here.
Full screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
You can
Which
use
one? Use this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will talk about women's role in East Turkestan Republic and the early period of the People's Republic of China in the 1950s. A little bit compare these two periods. As we know, in 1949, October, Chinese People's Liberation Army conquered Xinjiang, mostly in the southern part of Xinjiang, not in the early former East Turkestan Republic territory. After occupation East Turkestan Republic, Xinjiang, not East Turkestan Republic, in the Kashgaria, this region, China started some policy firstly in this region. One of the policy, of course, that is the woman policy. Before Chinese Communist invasion in this region until 1914, from 1944 until 1949, East Turkestan Republic has different kind of women's policy. One of the policy is relating to women's right. Women's rights were protected by law in East Turkestan Republic. This is first time in history of East Turkestan in Xinjiang. Under the East Turkestan Republic, efforts were made to consolidate and develop regime Legal affairs were also a key focus. At the same time, laws and regulations protecting women's legal rights, including equal civil rights to those of men, were enforced. The criminal law of East Turkestan Republic also protected women's right in the East Turkestan Republic. We know East Turkestan Republic from 1944-49, first time that accepted criminal law in the Xinjiang. East Turkestan Republic 1944-49, of course, they don't have constitution, but they had criminal law. And according to this criminal law, all the rights women are strongly protected. Criminal law for East Turkestan Republic stated that men and women, all of nationalities living in the land of East Turkestan, are citizens of the government. In the second clause and the first clause said, every person who is the citizen of East Turkestan Republic must fully possess the rights granted by government. And this means all the citizens of East Turkestan Republic have fully rights. And the East Turkestan Republic first time protected women's human, physical, honor, pride, and marital rights. They even included as a special provision in the law to safeguard young adult and underage girls from degradation, arbitrary insult, harassment, and others. And East Turkestan Republic, and the first time in the history, modern history, Xinjiang, participated this different kind of civil organization. One of the important is East Turkestan Women's Association. East Turkestan Republic government not only protected women's civil rights, but also promoted them, enabling women to exercise their citizenship rights and participate in the societies and organizations. Uyghur and other Muslim and non-Muslim ethnic groups were able to establish their own women's societies and participate various political and public organizations. One of the East Turkestan Women's Association. This organization officially established Gulja on February 4, 1946, and Aziz Pasha, this wife of President Elhan Töre, became president of this organization. In the mid-January 1948, East Turkestan Women Association held a meeting in Gulja where a new leadership of the association was elected. Also, this organization and this meeting adopted Charter of East Turkestan Women's Union, Women's Association. After that, Women's Association began to build district and regional grassroots organizations, and the branches were established in all districts in the countries East Turkestan. This is leadership of East Turkestan Women's Association. This picture took from, I think, from 1948. You can look at this picture, this here, not only Uyghur women. Here, Uyghur, Tatar, and also Kyrgyz, Kazakh, Russian, also Mongolian, and Shibo, Sibe, different kind of, almost besides Chinese, of course. Here, no one Chinese, of course. Here. Mostly, you can look at this picture. Mostly here, I know that wives, leaders of East Turkestan Republic. For example, one lady in the Central Tatar, this leader of this organization, Tatar woman, She was wife of finance minister of East Turkestan Republic. And the second one, this one, another one is wife of Ahmedjan Qasimi. Another one is Kyrgyz, wife of General Isakbek, something like that. And August 1, 1948, non-governmental organization called Peace and the People's Union was founded in Gulja. And this organization, this is like a party system. Leader was Ahmedjan Qasimi. This organization also established women's department. This women's department mostly leading all the affairs of women in East Turkestan Republic. Mission of the Women's Association of East Turkestan Republic. The aim of this society was to protect it and strengthen women's equal rights with men, women's freedom, women's culture, education, social political status, and also to promote women's rights among the people, to restrict poor behavior, for prosecuting women's discrimination, harassment, and others. Also, one of the mission is educate women and educate culture of women. Among its various activities in the Women's Association held national commemorations to celebrate the victory of revolution in East Turkestan Republic Day. Every year they organize it. And also 1948, this organization started publishing first women's magazine in the Ili, Gulja. I think this is first women's magazine in the whole Xinjiang region, that time in Uyghur language, called Hanım Kızla Awazi. Hanım Kızla is the ladies, girls, voice of ladies and the girls, this voice of women. You can look at this picture in the page, this education and something, yeah. One of the very important activity of women in East Turkestan Republic, that is participation to war, participation to army. Dilnur Raihan already explained a lot of story about women's role in the East Turkestan Republic. So here I don't want to repeat this information. And the most important things in the East Turkestan Republic is like support women's hero, nationalism. We already, Dilnur Raihan, she talked about Rizwan Gun and other heroes is East Turkestan Republic. From my counting, many women, this lady, female, participated in the first part of East Turkestan Republic. This first stage is until April 1945. This is like a guerrilla forces period. Rizwangul, one of the guerrilla forces of East Turkestan Republic, that time, they only they call partisan. They took this from Russian word, partisan, this guerrilla, not regular army. After April 8, 1945, East Turkestan, all the guerrilla forces that they changed it and they become regular national army. From my counting, around 2,000 female volunteers participated to national army, East Turkestan military service from November 1944 until 1949. They were multi-ethnic, of course, Uyghur and the Russian, Tatar, Uzbek, Tungan, Kazakh, Sibe, Mongol, and Kyrgyz, and the others. And the East Turkestan National Army, in the East Turkestan National Army, men and women worked together and took part in the combat. The highest rank achieved by the female officer in East Turkestan National Army was major. This one lady, Tatar, high rank, this major. And also many women officers, kapitan or something, or this all the vocabulary come from Russian, for example, praporshik, kapitan, lieutenant, something like that. This is a picture. Rizwan Gul is inside. 8 soldiers. This all Norse, military Norse. This picture took from, I think, before January 13, 1945, because Rizwan Gul died in January 13, 1945. So this before, I think, this 1 week. This is winter. Winter in the Gulja is very cold. This is officers of women officers of East Turkestan Republic who worked in the central command of East Turkestan regional army. Here is Russian and Tatar and the Uyghur all mixing. This center and that person is a general, just like a chief of staff army, Russian from former Tsar, the Tsarsky army, Russian, white Russian, who stayed in Gulja. In 1944, they become this like command of something. This all ladies, woman soldier, East Turkestan Republic, this North. This is a picture took from movie, 1980s. Chinese government prepared some movie about East Turkestan army. Of course, they call Sanchu Gaming. This name is different, of course. They never call East Turkestan Republic Army yet. This form, style, everything look like Soviet army style, but only this and some stars and some little bit have some different, of course. And East Turkestan Republic period, women that played a very important role in the education and the society. One of the important activities of East Turkestan Republic, women activities East Turkestan Republic is culture and art. East Turkestan Republic government established East Turkestan State Theater in 1945. Many Uyghur women participated to this drama theater. Women, Uyghur and other, of course, not only Uyghur, with men together, they played different kind of dramas. For example, Gherib Sanam, Parhat Shirin, Layla Majnun, Stain and Blood, Oven Environment, Arshimalal, Guncham, Gulnisa, something like that. Famous dramas in the East Turkestan Republic period, performed by Uyghur artists, actresses. And the East Turkestan Republic also awarded some lady like a honored artist of the Republic of East Turkestan. This is fully named Shah Turkestan. And the woman at the very important factor in East Turkestan Republic in the education system. East Turkestan Republic from end of August started all the schools in East Turkestan. Until 1945, East Turkestan government opened almost 300 schools in the Gulja, Tarbaghtay, Altay, three prefectures. All schools mostly this multi-language, Uyghur students in the Gulja. Russians had also middle school. Mostly women become teachers in these schools. And And this arts troupe in the East Turkestan Republic, men and women together. And the East Turkestan Republic period, women also participated to government works as government employee, different, and also they mostly worked in the financial system, accounting system, and others. This is one of the picture from government employee, men and women together. This is also picture for East Turkestan Republic's bank system picture, mostly a lady working in this bank system. This is one also picture from Gulja. You can look at these clothes, everything, I think not different from New York 1944. It's a style, everything, yeah. Same in the Moscow style, yeah, everything. This is students of the accounting school in the East Turkestan Republic. Man and the woman all together. This picture also picture of government employee. This picture belonged to East Turkestan newspaper. Name is Sharqi Turk İnqilabi Sharqi Turkestan. Revolutionary East Turkestan is called. And East Turkestan Republic period, East Turkestan government opened different kind of schools and training centers. One of the training centers was medical school. Medical school, East Turkestan government opened medical school in the Gulja from 1946 to 1949. Trained many women. And the doctor and the nurse in the East Turkestan Republic, different kind of Russian and Uyghur, Kazakh, all together here. And the East Turkestan government also opened the craft school, craft school in the Guljan 1945, 1948. From 1948, 1949, they trained around 213 women, mostly the Uyghur. And East Turkestan Republic government's leaders, Ahmetcan Qasimi and Ilhan Töre. Ilhan Töre is religious leader, of course everybody knows. Ahmetcan Qasimi, most modern educated person who received PhD from Moscow in history that time. They strongly supported women's rights in this republic, and they paid more attention to women's role in the republic. The leader, Ahmetcan Qasimi, also among the Tatar school teachers. This government employs East Turkestan Republic leaders who care about women's rights in this republic. Of course, East Turkestan Republic, we can talk about a lot on the special women's activity, rights, and everything in the republic. And I will talk about a little bit PRC period. You know, 1949, Chinese People's Army invaded Xinjiang. Of course, they call Heping Jefang, peaceful, liberated Xinjiang. From my opinion, never been being peaceful liberation without 200,000 army. If you send 200,000 army to one area, how can this called peaceful liberation? Chinese government mostly first they occupying the southern part Xinjiang. In the first action of Chinese troops was to established military administrative organs in the Aksu, Kashgar, Yarkand, Khotan, and other locations. November 26, People's Liberation Army first came to Kashgar. November 20, they conquered Aksu, then Kashgar. December 20, they controlled Khotan. Until end of December, PLA almost controlled all the southern and eastern part of Xinjiang. But northern part and west part of Manas River, Ili, Tarbagtay, Alday, still under control of East Turkestan National Army. End of December 1949, Mao Zedong, he visited Moscow and met Stalin. After several conversation and meeting, in January, mid of January 1950, first time Chinese People's Liberation Army crossed Manas River, came to Ili. This means only after 3 months, Chinese People's Liberation Army controlled all the southern and eastern part of Xinjiang. Then they controlled Ili, former East Turkestan Republic territory. Of course, Ahmedjan Qasimi and other leaders died in the Mysore plane crash. Saifuddin and went to Beijing, and there's a lot of history. Of course, we don't need here talk about. People's Liberation Army, when controlled Kashgar, Khotan, Yarkand, Aksu, these regions, first they organized military administration using military forces controlling government. And the military controlling committee, so they established different levels government organizations, country government and village government and also everything. And the Chinese government, first they started from January 1950, pay attention to women's works affairs in this Kashgar, this area. 1950, that in the January, Chinese government established Chinese Democratic Women's Organization in the Urumqi. And beginning of January, branch of this organization was established in the Kashgar. Also, Chinese government firstly organized Chinese Communist Party Committee in the Kashgar. And the Chinese Party Committee also had women's department. They mostly they started work among the Uyghur women from several points. First, they recruited and trained Uyghur women cadres first. By 1951, Kashgar Prefecture government establishment, and 2,072 cadres were created, with only 21 being women, only 21 women. This 21 women, not Uyghur, this Chinese woman, Chinese, I think this member of Chinese PLA forces. After that, they started training some female Uyghur cadres. 1951, 21, and 1959, over 20,000 cadres were trained in the Kashgar, this area. Around 4,046 female cadres. This half this part, I think this were Uyghur women. In 1980, they trained about 12,880 female cadres in the Kashgar prefecture only. Among them, 2,600 is ethnic minority. They call ethnic minority, Uyghur and the others, of course. Mostly Han Chinese, of course. This is preparing women cadre policy, and also another one policy that early period, women's cultural transformation. Chinese government women's strategy centered on redefining traditional practice as backward and harmful. Key objectives including, for example, challenging religious and cultural norms. And the second is around the woman. One is cultural education, social activities, and opposing feudal marriage traditions, enforcing government marriage laws. 1951, Chinese government, they accepted first marriage law in the People's Republic of China. Chinese government from 1951 started propagate this marriage law in the Kashgar and this area, because until that time in the southern part, Xinjiang, mostly marriage, this like a nikah, this Muslim style nikah. Never they pay attention any gomindang, all the government, some paper, something registration, something. Chinese government started from 1951. And for this law, Chinese government used a lot of Uyghur women cadres and some women communists. They did a lot of propaganda work among the Uyghur villages, Uyghur women. For example, in 1953, Kashgar region alone resolved 32 marriage disputes that demonstrating the extensive reach of this transformative efforts. That's meaning that time Chinese government that said that all the style of nikah, Muslim style nikah, is like illegal. You know, these people never know what is illegal, legal. Local Uyghurs, they never accept any government's marriage law, something like that. And before Sheng Sisai or Gomindang, also they didn't have any Chinese government style marriage law, something in this region. That's why, though many Uyghur women in this period didn't accept Chinese government's this law. So that time, government cadres more pay attention and propaganda this law among the Uyghur. This is very important part of this Uyghur history and in changing Uyghur women by Chinese government. And another one issue is suppression of the Uyghur women's national independence and political freedom. Before I mentioned about women in East Turkestan Republic period, of course, after 1950, Chinese communists controlled whole Xinjiang. They did some works in the Kashgar, Aksu. This territory was under Gomindang, of course, that time before. And East Turkestan Republic territory in the Gulja, Altai, Chechak, Tarbakta in this region, of course, all the women fighters, they educated under independent republic. All the women had independency, independent republic, East Turkestan, and the independent education system, everything. And after 1951, China also need change this woman. This is very important. So what they did, first of all, they prepared a lot of women communist cadres, new Uyghur women communists among the Uyghur women. That is, using that Uyghur women communists among the Uyghur women, they themselves did a lot of works changing for them. In the 1950s, also some women participated in some resistance movements in the Khotan or the region. In 1954, one lady, Fatima, her name I think, she was leader of some resistance movement in the Khotan, Fatima. So Chinese government pay more attention than changing this woman, mostly they changing the idea. And forced all the women participated to different kind of movements since early 1950s. For example, anti-feudalism, land reform, anti-3 and anti-5, suppressing counter-revolutionaries, also still tempering in the 1958, and also anti-rights struggle against the local nationalism, and also 1960s anti-Soviet and Soviet revisionism. This meaning this called Shudongzhui that time, this anti-Soviet. All the women, Uyghur women, in this movements by Chinese government. This very important picture, interesting picture. This woman, all the armored women, this is not soldiers East Turkestan of East Turkestan Army or East Turkestan guerrilla forces. This is Minbing, so-called Minbing in Chinese, people's soldier. This people's soldier in 1960s, 1970s, from end of 1960s, Chinese government called Xinjiang is like a front line against Soviet front line. So they used a lot of Chinese liberation army, located a lot of liberation army located in this area. That time some counting said around 500,000 Chinese PLA soldiers in the Xinjiang, because of Mongolia, Xinjiang, this like front line that time. And also Mao Zedong prepared around 1 million Uyghur and other people's Minbing that time during the 10 years. Mostly all the Uyghur women, mostly this village woman and the students, something participated to this Minbing preparation, this army. Because that time I was also 11, 12 years old. I saw a lot of women armed. My older sister also was armed Minbing that time. Yeah, I don't want to talk about what happened right now for Uyghur women. What is Chinese policy? Because we have a lot of information and the writing, everything, a lot of discussions. Just like one thing I want to mention here. Right now is very top slogan is 中华民族. Uyghur woman is that means of promoting of the Chinese national identity, 中华民族, right now, this topic. Just like one thing. Recently, we know transformative way with targeting Uyghur women has emerged, aimed and shaping them through new Chinese culture, language, and consciousness. These efforts are concluded under the banner of strengthening China nation, Chinese nation, 中华民族, collective identity. Most prominent manifestation is the widespread encouragement of the Uyghur women to marry Han Chinese and form Han Uyghur families. This is very typical. In 1950s, Chinese PLA conquered this area, controlled Kashgar, never use this term, never support intermarriage between Han and Uyghur. Because, you know, until 1949, whole the Xinjiang region, Uyghurs is around more than 3 million, 78% of whole the population. Han Chinese, only 5%. This is minority. Han Chinese was minority that time in this region. Only this Han Chinese population only located in the located northern Xinjiang, mostly Urumqi, and around Urumqi, this area. And how many Chinese population was in the southern part Xinjiang? According to Chinese official statistics, 1944 and 47, in the southern part and the 5 prefecture that time in Xinjiang, in the 5 prefecture, from my counting from Chinese official statistics, 7,800 Chinese population in the whole Nanjiang, so-called Nanjiang. In the 5 prefecture, around the 7,800 something. In the Atush, famous place Atush, only 9 Chinese. Whole Kashgar prefecture, 1,200 Chinese population. Whole the prefecture. In the Aksu, also 2,000. I know each county how many Chinese that time. I think in that time, whole the Chinese population number less than our Uyghur population in United States. I think that about 12,000 Uyghur in the whole United States. But that time, whole the Xinjiang, East Turkestan, southern 5 prefecture, Chinese population under 10,000.
Does that include military?
That is not included. Of course, in the southern part, Xinjiang, China only using forces, military forces control at that time. Kuomintang forces in the southern part, they called for 40,000. But this is name, 40,000. In fact, that around the 20,000 Kuomintang forces controlled the whole region. But that civilian, the civil population, only around 8,000, under 10,000. Well, of course, right now is. But China said Xinjiang 2,000 years ago, ancient times, all land. China 2,000 years ago, Chinese people lived in the Xinjiang. Why did region didn't become like a Sichuan, like a Zhejiang, Jiangsu, if 2,000 years your Chinese people live here? So, and another last one, just. This picture. Professor Milward also before talk about this picture and the story Chinese woman soldiers in Xinjiang. One of the important factors in the Chinese women soldiers in Xinjiang in 1950s. From 1953-58, Chinese government transferred around 1,000 women to Xinjiang. And before 1952, also many Chinese women soldiers entered Xinjiang from Hunan and Shandong. They're mostly for married to Chinese PLA soldiers. Under this woman, also Chinese woman, so-called soldier, PLA forces, they worked among the Uyghur women in the Kashgar and the Hulja different area. They also participated to preparation, training Uyghur communist cadres, and changing some village, and different kind of works. So that also important one of the policy, China's policy in early 1950s. Thank you so much. Көп рахмет.
Thank you very much to both of you for your presentations. It's all very interesting and informative, especially as you both said, it's a very understudied and underdiscussed topic in Uyghur historiography. So considering the time, I am not going to make any remarks, and I'm just going to open the floor up to questions from the audience. As Tim has a question. Oh wait, 2 seconds. Can you just wait for the microphone for the people online?
All right. Yeah, thank you for the wonderful presentations. And my question is about striking balance. So how do we strike a balance between documenting these underreported strides that pre-PRC Uyghur communities made in attaining gender equality and actually romanticizing the period is to the degree that it almost suggests that women had already attained a sense of equality, and these weren't necessarily just strides, but this was actually, that these goals were already kind of obtained.
I think Chinese government in the early period, 1950, that from their perspective, in the southern part, of course, Kashgar, this region, Uyghur women, first, they need education from, and changing their quality, this like education quality and also ideology, something like that. They know if you change this, everything, you can change that religious identity, you can change other nationalistic identity and everything. And also, that time, of course, Uyghur people, they didn't familiar to communists, mostly, especially Chinese communists. So early period, mostly for controlling this land, they started a lot of works, of course, land reform something, but one of the important work among the women, just like changing women. I think this woman is very important. They preparing sons, children, family. So women's affairs was always very important for Chinese government that time.
Yeah, this question of romanticization of the women's condition during the East Turkestan period, I think, as I said, because this question is very under-documented, and the few documentation or materials or articles published or written on this period, specifically on this question, were written by the men like Nabjan Tursunnaka. And also we don't have any interviews or written documents by the women, Uyghur women or East Turkestani women of that period. That's why I think this is, that's why I think this explains also the romanticization and a very positive regard, positive view of this period as East Turkestani or Uyghur researcher or Uyghur of East Turkestan. And but I think if if we had more documentation, especially from women of that period, we had more clear view and also neutral view of this period. And we know that, especially as I mentioned, the Women Association of East Turkestan at the time was created by the state head, and also all the leaders of this association were the women of wives of these politicians, and is headed attached to the religious affairs ministry. So we can imagine that it was not all positive and it was not all beautiful. Yeah, and I can say only this, I think, for this.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit about my presentation, for example, women's role in East Turkestan Republic period. Of course, for investigating role of Uyghur women and the situation of Uyghur women and East Turkestan Republic, this is not my romantic idea. This is reality. This was reality, because for investigate and for make a creation of the situation of Uyghur women in this period, I read a lot of original materials. For example, a lot of articles, news from former East Turkestan Republic newspapers, Azad Sharq Turkestan, İnqilab-ı Sharqistan, and the Kurash struggle magazine, everything. Read a lot of. Also, I interviewed many people who participated to this revolution. Tatar, Uyghur, also other. Of course, all the people already passed away. I started my interview 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So then, in the result, I wrote this my paper, who Dilnur translated to French. Thank you.
Oh yeah. So following Tim's question, I think my question would be like, is there any class differences between how this, what you present and what exactly happened in the grassroots level? It's not like in the villages what exactly happened. I'm not saying this is your romance, definitely that's exactly what happened, but we could clearly see that this is presented by, like, as you mentioned, wives of those leaders and the elite part of the community at that time. And I wonder what exactly happened in the grassroots level and what exactly happened in the villages at that time. And my another question to Dilnur would be, like I myself grew up as listening to Rizwan Gul's story as an exemplar. And when you are presenting this, it reminds me of some Han exemplar stories, like Liu Hulan, for example, how she was an exemplar of some stories about Japanese colonization in the region. And we grew up as Rizwan Gul's story about how she was a hero, an exemplar of against feudalism and so on. So I wonder how this Rizwan Gul's story is presented by the Chinese Communist government, and how it was presented by the people in Gulja itself. So probably you mentioned that, but maybe I missed these details, and those are very interesting for me. Thank you.
Yeah. As I mentioned also, you know, the period from 18th after the Cultural Revolution until 2000, maybe 2000, in the middle of the 2000, we had some literature or history inserted in our literature textbooks in Uyghur schools. So we had all grown up with the story of Rizwan Gul. And also not only the Rizwan Gul's story, life story, but also whole the East Turkestan Republic story is particularly important for the, of course, for whole Uyghurs, but particularly in Gulja. And also that's why maybe also in Gulja the spirit of revolution is stronger also because we were nourished since we were kids. We were nourished with them, at least in the Uyghur schools, by the not only by the teachers, but also at home. Yeah, but yeah, it's. That's right. Ah oui, le Roland, voilà, pardon, complètement. Yeah, it's really, as I said also at the beginning of my presentation, choosing some women heroines for the national roman of the nation state is not specific thing for Uyghurs. In France, it's same. Among the Chinese, for Chinese people, is the same Chinese state. And the Liu Helan, of course, we also grown up with the Liu Helan's story, and it's similar. Yeah, it's similar, and we can find same story for French people, for Jeanne d'Arc, for example, yeah. Or in other states, also in Algeria, for some women, only few women were chosen, not all, yeah, it's same everywhere, and the nation-state story also is same for different peoples. Right. And for the first question, because I'm not historian, and also I'm more sociologist, so I don't have I only rely or depend on the documentation of the historians like Nevcan Tursun or Tursun Erşidin, etc. So on the grassroots, yeah, movements or situations in the villages, I don't have the documentation. As I said, the women's situation at the time is already very under-documented. We have very few things on it, and it concerns specifically the big cities like Olja, not the small towns or villages.
Mukaddas' question is about the 1950s. Yeah, and we don't know exactly situation about Uyghur women in the village area of the Kashgar, and what happened that time. Exactly, we don't have fully material, but we know some statistics, some Chinese also official statistics about some Chinese government activities in these villages and counties and also prefectural level. For example, you can read some local history of the prefecture or counties of Xinjiang. You can find some information about this. For example, Kashgar Vilayeti Tezkiresi, in Chinese called Difangzhi. It's like a local history or memory, something. Lot of information, like how many communist states they tried it in the 1950s, and how many women cadres prepared in the Kashgar and the Aksu, other region, everything. From these statistics, you can make some analysis. Yeah, make decision.
Is there time for my question?
Okay, yeah, Rebecca, ask your question and we'll try and be quick and then
Okay.
go on a break.
I think you alluded to this a little bit, but first of all, thank you for highlighting women's voices. Historically, I think you're correct, Dilnur, that in every society we have this problem of women being invisible, especially in history. My question is, you mentioned Rizwan Gul's story, that she's well known, and you also, both of you mentioned that we don't know a lot about women's roles. Why is Rizwan Gul specifically the one who we know about? Or are there other women that you two have not talked about specifically who are also as well known?
Yeah, I think why Rizwan Gul was the one chosen for the national story, national roman. I think it for her, yeah, many women and men participating to the liberation war were young, and in her case, I think she was already very much also praised among the nurses and the soldiers also, and she when she died, and the context of her when she was died, the context was particular because she yeah, and because as I said, 99% maybe most of the Uyghurs women soldiers were in the medical corps and administration corps. So very few of them they opened the le feu, c'était quoi? Opened the fire in the battlefield, and because they were behind, most of them. So that's one of the reason I think. And also she was after her death, there were a special ceremony for her, and that's why also we have the documentation. And the next days after her death, after the ceremony also, as I mentioned, many of the Uyghur writers and the poets had praised, also published poetry on her. That's why we have documentation on her.
Okay, that's really all we have time for. So thank you very much, everybody. And we're now going to have a break until 11:30 when we're going to start again with the next panel.